because you don't understand.
This is not going to end well. I'm not surprised at all that Feeling Pinkie Keen was a requested episode for me to talk about. Much like the mysterious Ne'er-do-well, this episode was the black sheep of Season 1. However, unlike Ne'er-do-well, which had a poorly written script and a self-contradicting message at the very end, Keen was an episode that unintentionally arose a lot of controversy. It was taken so heavily offensive in terms of its moral and how much it was practically misunderstood. The reception out of this message went so sour that even Lauren Faust feared talking about it. As a matter of fact, I'm in fear of talking about this episode due to its insensitivities I might bring up. However, I do believe that there is a redeemable way that could have made up for its faults if the execution and dynamic was played out correctly. What follows here is that Pinkie has a sense of oncoming predictions through bodily functions, such as a twitchy tail indicating that something is going to fall from the sky.
So basically, it works like this. I get different little niggly feelings and they mean different things. Like when my back gets itchy, it means it's my lucky day. And when my knee gets pinchy, that means something scary is about to happen.
Throughout the rest of the episode, Twilight doesn't find it to be true, and thus she analyzes her. She endlessly tries to contradict Pinkie's sensing abilities with any factual evidence she can get her hooves on. However, every step of the way, Twilight's proven wrong out of all the predictions Pinkie's estimated, and it ends with a slapstick putting Twilight in the states of humiliation. That's as little the plot offers, and most of it is just played for laughs. What we get in this episode is a conflict between suspicion against science and a Roadrunner-esque comedy. Pinkie Pie plays the protagonist on the side of suspicion, and Twilight's the antagonist representing science. This is one of the first major problems. Let it be said that there are stories that always involve conflict, and there's always one side to root for. But if you take that concept to compare real-life matters with it, you're going to be facing extreme delicacy. And I'm not just talking about what we have in this episode, but generally speaking. A prime example was with environmental cartoons back in the 90s, specifically Ferngully and Once Upon a Forest. What they shared in common was how much we needed to respect our motherly planet. But because of how one-sided it was, it forgot to tell kids that trees are a natural resource for our shelter and living environments, ranging from towns and neighborhoods to major cities and utopias. A more properly balanced moral on that matter was with Princess Mononoke, which addressed both sides equally. Getting back to Feeling Pinkie Keen, a better script would have involved a more balanced conflict. Perhaps Pinkie would be curious about her unusual abilities, like how she got it, such as maybe a family trait in her history and it was passed on to her, or if she was uncertain or not, it would always work throughout her life. Twilight can investigate with the use of science alongside it instead of against it. But instead of making that direction, Pinkie just enforces Twilight on a one-sided message.
You don't believe because you don't understand.
And that's when the religious aspect is brought up and brings the moral completely out of context. Some viewers believe that this episode tried to enforce that religion is something you have to choose to believe in. The actual moral is that it's important to have an open mind. And if you can't understand the answers, you just have to choose to believe it.
I don't see how it does, but it just does. Just because I don't understand doesn't mean it's not true.
Okay, let's put aside the religious point and get back to the suspicion. While the virtues of having an open mind can be conceivably true, that isn't always the answer to everyone's argument. Answers don't always come to you. You have to go to them and work for it. This is also known as being proactive. Add this message and the religious side that viewers have perceived it towards, and you have one hell of a crisis on your hands. But of course, it goes without talking about the writer of this episode, Dave Polsky. Now to get this out of the way, Dave's been pretty infamous for the episodes he's written, them being this, Over a Barrel, and Keep Calm and Flutter On, all of which have held delicate and sensitive premises. The strength of Dave's writing style is his use of humor. As a matter of fact, Too Many Pinkie Pies was a perfect example for him to write on, given how simple the episode was written out and what humor is put in support of the story. It maintained its audience throughout a simple storyline. A lot of jokes he's made, including this one, have been presented very well. Getting back to Feeling Pinkie Keen, I did get good laughs such as Twilight's fiery rage at the end and the slapstick torment on the Hydra, plus Gummy's first appearance that made Twilight jump out of the bathtub. But the humor in this episode unfortunately cost the story's coherence and improper representation that horrifically affected the message. That, and I didn't like how tormenting the episode was with Twilight. Again, this episode was too one-sided. In the overall consensus, I personally think that other writers can tackle on delicate morals much better than what Polsky can. Now, just to be perfectly clear, this isn't a guarantee on how this episode could have been written any better. It's at the very least from my point of view on how I would have adjusted the execution and managed its repercussions. Everyone has different viewpoints, especially how the subject can be compared with other ones that are sensitive. On the plus side, the use of Pinkie's senses have been put to use from time to time, but with more naturality in support of the story. But I'll only stop there since I don't want to open up any more fresh can of worms. I'll end it on this note. Let a lesson be learned that realistic topics should be handled more delicately, and what precautions should be taken in advance. Mistakes are going to happen. There will always be a piece that it won't live up to, and this episode has proven that. Until next time, I'm GoldenFox, and I'm going to be taking cover since this video is going to start a flame war.